I arrived in a country I won't name. Too many strange things happened afterward. It was January, deep winter. The airport looked like a gray box lost in endless snow. I rented an Airbnb on the outskirts of a small town almost untouched by tourists. Across the narrow street stood an old 3-story building, windows empty, curtainless. The host described it as quiet area. No one lives in the building across the street. It's abandoned. Back then it sounded convenient. Now, unsettling. The house was clean but wrong. It felt staged, as if it wasn't prepared for living, but for someone to be inside. 2 plates, 2 chairs, 2 toothbrush holders. From the bedroom window I could see the building across the street. A second-floor window directly aligned with mine. It looked like an eye. A dark, empty eye. I turned on the lights, unpacked, opened my laptop. Snow fell like a thick curtain outside. And then something odd happened. As I walked past the window, I saw a shadow glide along the opposite side of the street in the reflection. Long, stretched. When I turned around, nothing. Just my imagination, I thought. For now. At night I woke up to a sound. A long scraping noise. Like nails dragging across frozen glass. I sat up, listening. It came from outside, but the height suggested it was right in front of my window. I slowly approached, looked out. Nothing. Just snow. But the scraping didn't stop. Now it sounded like it was inside the wall. In the morning I went out. Approaching the door, I noticed something disturbing. There were no tracks in the snow. None, except mine from yesterday. Although last night the noise was clearly outside. I turned toward the building across the street. And saw it. A silhouette in the second-floor window. Still. Motionless. I blinked, it vanished. But I saw the shape clearly. Narrow shoulders. Neck too long. I asked the shopkeeper near the square, "Is the building across the Airbnb really abandoned?" He looked at me sharply. "You shouldn't ask about it, just don't stare at it." "Why not?" He turned away. "You're not from here." I forced a laugh, but felt something cold inside. The next morning the window was frosted over, unevenly. In the center was a clear circle, like someone pressed their face against the glass from the inside, staring out. But I hadn't gotten up at night, and the windows were locked. The circle was large. Too large. I worked on my laptop in the living room. Snow outside turned bluish-gray. Then, flicker. The abandoned house's window lit up for a second. Weak, like a dying bulb. For a moment I saw empty walls inside. Then darkness. A moment later, the lights in my Airbnb flickered on, without me touching anything. I checked the fuse box. Everything was fine. Returning to the living room, I heard it. A quiet knock. 3 times. Pause. 3 again. I approached the front door. But the knocking wasn't on the door. It came from the window of the abandoned house, across the street. Something moved in the darkness there, crouching, then standing back up, smoothly, unnaturally. I decided to record the night. Left my phone on the windowsill, pointed at the window across the street. In the morning I reviewed the footage. 7 hours of nothing. Snow. Wind. But then, at hour 6, minute 9, the camera shook slightly. As if someone tapped it from the other side of the glass. Then 2 faint lights appeared in the distant darkness. Like eyes. But too high to belong to a person. A second later they vanished. I froze. All day I felt drained, as if I hadn't slept. I avoided the video, but it felt like something was inside it, waiting. Accidentally rewinding, I caught something odd. When the eyes appeared, they didn't just glow. They blinked. I replayed it. And now the blink looked intentional. As if something was posing. Lights flickered several times that evening. I heard footsteps in the hallway, but the door was closed. No one was there. Only the rug slightly shifted, as if someone stood on it and turned. Then the abandoned house lit up, all floors at once. A dead building suddenly alive. Something inside was awake. The Airbnb owner wrote, "If you hear anything at night, don't approach the windows. And don't record anything. No greeting. No explanation." I typed, "What's going on?" but didn't send it. It felt dangerous to ask. A blizzard grew outside. I listened to the wind and footsteps. Slow, heavy. Not human, too spaced out. Sometimes they faded. Sometimes returned. At 3 a.m. they stopped right under my window. I froze until I fell asleep from fear. I forced myself to look outside. No tracks. None. But I heard the steps. Then I noticed the window across the street slightly open. In winter. In an abandoned house. I felt watched. But every time I tried to focus, nothing. I walked to clear my head. The town felt dead. People didn't look at me. At the abandoned house I saw fresh scratches on the door. High, uneven. Something tall. Something wrong. Inside, faint breathing. I left immediately. The bedroom window was open when I returned. Cold air. Frost on the sill. 2 elongated finger marks. And a smaller sixth one. Not human. Around 2 a.m., a tap on the window. Soft. With a long nail. Nothing there. But across the street, a shadow slid out of view too quickly. The room was freezing in the morning. Frost on the window shaped like a long, narrow face. Something watched me all night. A new email. No sender. No text. Just a photo. My window. Taken last night from outside. I stood there. But stretched. Dark. Neck too long. The phone slipped from my hand. I noticed something odd. One of the rooms in the Airbnb always stays locked. The handle has an old-fashioned lock that none of the keys fit. But the strange part is the cold draft. Every time I walk past, I feel winter air crawling out from under the door, even though the house is fully heated. That night I heard a soft tapping from inside the room, as if someone, or something, was gently touching the door from the other side. I didn't dare go closer. The next morning, I saw strange tracks in the snow outside. They led toward the house but stopped right at the wall, as if whatever made them climbed upward and vanished. The footprints were too long, as if they belonged to something over 2 meters tall, and spaced irregularly, as though it moved in a way no human should. I reviewed the footage my phone captured overnight. At one moment, just a fraction of a second, the window across the courtyard reflected in the corner of the frame. There was a silhouette in it. Tall, elongated, slightly hunched forward. Standing still. Watching. But I never saw it in real life, only in the recording. I came back in the evening. The curtains in my room were wrinkled, as if someone had grabbed them with both hands. Long dents marked the fabric, like fingers had pressed into it with force. I remembered the footprints in the snow and shivered. I closed the curtains, but they quivered slightly, as if released only moments ago. The Airbnb host finally replied. The message contained only one sentence. "If you see anything in the window, don't react. Whatever you do, don't make eye contact." I reread it several times. No explanation. No context. Nothing even remotely comforting. I closed the curtains, but they quivered slightly, as if released only moments ago. I woke up to sudden brightness, as if someone had opened the curtains. I sat up immediately. The curtains were lifted but no one was in the room. In the window across the courtyard, the silhouette again. Close this time, much closer. It was pressed almost against the glass. And then I realized, it wasn't just staring toward me. It was staring into my eyes, despite the distance and glass between us. I turned away, just as the host instructed, but I could feel it still staring. My peripheral vision kept forming its shape. I tried distracting myself, turned on the light, a video, scrolled through my phone. But in the reflection I saw the window again. And in it, long fingers pressed against the glass. First a soft knock. Then sharper. The creature tapped on the glass, first with fingertips, then with its full palm, slow and rhythmic. But it wasn't at my window. It was in the building across. Yet the sound was so clear it felt like it echoed inside my own room. When I dared look again, the creature wasn't alone anymore. Behind it was a second face, a normal human face, but emotionless, pale, frozen. Only the eyes moved. Too quickly. Too deliberately. It wasn't looking at me, it was calculating something, tracking some invisible point. When the lamp flickered and died, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. The air grew thick, like before a storm. Both silhouettes disappeared from the opposite window. But their reflection remained in mine. They were standing behind me. I didn't turn around. My body felt paralyzed. There were no footsteps, no breathing, no sound at all. But I sensed them, a dense presence right behind me, as if two figures were leaning over my shoulders. In the reflection, one of the faces slowly elongated downward, melting into a stretched, unnatural shape. The other grew sharper, more defined, almost like it was focusing. Suddenly, a creak. Not behind me, above me. As if something was walking on the ceiling. The footsteps were uneven, strange, as though the creature's limbs weren't symmetrical. One step closer, another. Then, a loud thud. As if it tried to break through. My phone buzzed. The Airbnb host sent another message. If it's inside, do not move. It only needs your eyes. A chill ran down my spine. If it's inside. Then he knew. He knew this would happen. I looked at my reflection. The window behind it was gone. In its place, a long, gray corridor stretching into darkness. A faint moonlight glow pulsed at the far end. And something moved inside. A head extending around the corner. Slowly, too slowly. As if showing it had all the time in the world. Behind me, a whisper. Soft and cold. It said my name. Slowly. Wrongly, as if it had practiced human speech but never fully learned. The whisper was in single, two voices overlapped, out of sync. One too high. One too low. I remembered, when searching for a place, this was the only one where the bedroom window faced another inhabited building at such a close distance. It needed that. It chose homes where there were human eyes directly across. Eyes to watch. Eyes to wait for. The air grew heavy, thick. I couldn't breathe fully, as if something invisible sat on my chest. The whispers grew louder. They weren't calling my name anymore. They were mimicking my breathing. Trying to synchronize with it. Trying to merge with me. In the reflection, I saw one of the beings standing directly behind me. Tall, narrow, stretched. Its head was bent so low it almost touched my shoulder. The second face peeked out from behind the wardrobe. Silent. Its eyes perfectly still. I blinked, and my reflection no longer matched reality. My reflection sat perfectly still, though I was breathing fast and shallow. It didn't blink. Then it raised its head, higher than I physically could, and stared directly at me. When I finally dared turn my head, the room had changed. They stood in a circle around me. 6, maybe 7 figures, tall, thin, stretched faces, all of them looking down at me, none of them blinking. I realized the window was only the beginning. They had always been here, waiting for someone to look back. The silhouettes stood around me, motionless, tall, thin, like charcoal sketches on gray paper. Yet I saw them move. Not their bodies. Their shadows. The shadows slid across the floor like liquid, stretching, widening, breaking at impossible angles, as if the light came from somewhere that didn't exist. They didn't step closer. But they didn't stay still either. I tried lifting my arm, but nothing happened. My body wouldn't respond. Then I saw my reflection. It sat the same way, but its arms were already raised, twisted oddly. It was showing me what was supposed to happen next. Showing how I should move. And I realized, they didn't want to kill. They wanted to replace. The whispers grew louder. Not shouting, just uncomfortably close, as if their mouths were pressed against my ears. They spoke in a language I didn't know, yet I understood the meaning. Commands. Instructions. Telling me where to look, how to breathe, when to blink. They were teaching me to be myself, just not the version that I am. The curtains puffed inward, and icy air poured into the room. The window was open, but I hadn't heard a click or a creak. Outside, darkness. Not night, but something thicker, without depth or shape. Two silhouettes emerged from that darkness. Not across the courtyard. On my windowsill. When they entered the room, I saw their feet never touch the ground. They hovered slightly above it, swaying gently as if supported by water. Snow dripped from their feet, melting into dark spots on the floor. They weren't walking toward me. They were gliding. One of them leaned closer. Close enough for me to feel the icy scent, like inhaling frost. It spoke my name. This time, perfectly. With the exact intonation. The same pauses I use. A numb chill washed over me. It now knew how my voice sounded. Long, thin fingers reached toward my face. I couldn't resist, my body was no longer mine. Their fingers closed gently over my eyes. Not painful, strangely soothing. The world went silent, almost non-existent, and inside that silence I heard, "Now see as we do." When their fingers withdrew, I realized my vision had changed. I wasn't seeing through eyes anymore. I saw the entire room at once. Every corner, every figure, every drifting dust particle. And I saw them the way they see themselves, without light, without darkness, without distance. There weren't two figures, nor seven. There were many more. When I felt my body again, one of the beings stood beside me. It placed a hand on my shoulder, light, almost weightless. And a thought, not a voice, entered my mind. "You didn't come to this house. You came back to it." Those words terrified me more than anything before. They turned my gaze not physically, but mentally. And I saw a window. Not mine. Not the one across. Thousands of windows. In other countries. Other apartments. Other windows. And in each window sat a person. Alone. Looking out. And I understood, they never arrive by chance. They wait for the one who can look back. I stared at the endless windows, nausea rising from the sheer scale of what I was seeing. Every person, every silhouette, none of it was random. Something was watching them the same way something watched me. Only now I could see their watchers. Tall, thin shadows behind every pane of glass, like reflections that refused to vanish. Among the countless windows, one suddenly zoomed forward, as if pressed right against my face. It was my window. But I wasn't seeing myself now. I was seeing myself a year ago, sitting with my laptop, thinking I was alone. And a shadow was already standing behind that window. Among the countless windows, one suddenly zoomed forward, as if pressed right against my face. It was my window. Cold dread sank into me. They didn't come to me in this country. They had been watching long before. This meeting wasn't random. Airbnbs, hotels, trips, they were just places where I happened to notice them. If I'd looked more closely years ago, the window across would have never been empty. Among the countless windows, one suddenly zoomed forward, as if pressed right against my face. It was my window. Cold dread sank into me. They didn't come to me in this country. They had been watching long before. The figure beside me tilted its head. Its mouth didn't move. The voice formed in my mind, like a thought that didn't belong to me. "You've always seen us. You just didn't understand what you were seeing." Something inside me cracked. Understanding. Memory. Logic. A door appeared within my altered field of vision, neither from my room nor the Airbnb. An old wooden door standing in the middle of emptiness. Frost covered it. Snow gathered beneath it. And I immediately knew, the door didn't separate anything. It led to them. And only to them. The door cracked open, not physically, but in my perception. Inside was a white corridor, impossibly long. And I understood, if I stepped inside, I would stop being myself. The creature gently nudged me forward. When I stepped forward, the room vanished. The windows vanished. Everything vanished. I tasted snow, wet, metallic, on my tongue, and I realized, this wasn't a hallway. It was the space between places, and it had been waiting for me. In the emptiness, shadows flickered, dozens of them, figures of people who stepped forward and never stopped. Some were silhouettes, some looked like empty shells, some like mirrors reflecting strangers' faces. And I realized, they weren't taken. They walked willingly. Something touched my back, a slight chill. I turned, and saw it wasn't one shadow. All of them were behind me, waiting for a decision, waiting to see if I would become one of them. I stepped back. Not forward, back. Forced myself to. And everything collapsed. Reality broke like ice under weight. I was back in the Airbnb. Dark. Cold. The window, closed. The silhouettes, gone. Only my breathing and the snow outside. But when I approached the window, my reflection didn't mirror me again. In its eyes was the corridor. Wide. Endless. It looked at me the way they looked at others. And I understood. They released me only so that I could watch. In their place.